Thank you. It's good to be here. It's hot.
It is a little bit toasty out. I don't know if we're gonna be able to survive any more triple-digit days like this, but we'll do.
I was told it's better to be in the afternoon stage. In the morning, everyone's hungover in the morning.
Yeah, that checks out. That checks out. I think we have an engaged crowd here. So
Good.
It's gonna be a fun one. All right, cool. So obviously this title is about the fight against SEC, right? So I'm sure most people here are familiar, but just in case, I'm gonna go over a quick backstory. For me, this saga begins in January 2020, when you were at Davos, I was at Davos, and you made a statement on stage that within the next 12 months or so, you were likely to go public.
I think what I said was I thought there'd be crypto companies that would go public. We wouldn't be first, but we also wouldn't be last.
Actually, that's exactly accurate. Thank you for that.
But you're directionally right. I know you let you ask your question. Had the SEC stuff not happened, and obviously Coinbase got public, I was close to about right. I think things got a little bit delayed, but I think it's a sign of the maturing of the industry.
16 months was a pretty good call on that, so I'll give you the plus minus 4 on
right, thank you.
public. So that's when this, to me, starts, right? Come December 2020, big bombshell news. SEC sues Ripple Labs for unregistered securities offering. And you guys have sort of been dealing with that ever since. Here we are 18 months later, there's no resolution to that case. We had a really interesting update with a hearing this week. So I want to ask you about how you're seeing this playing out here in June 2022. I know it's been a while. How's it look?
Look, the headline for me is I feel like it looks good. In large part, I think it's very clear, and the more that has come out, the facts are on our side, and I think it's more and more clear the law is on our side. I think the case, when it first was brought, it was misguided. I frankly, to this day, can't even explain why some of these decisions were made. It's super frustrating, there's no question, and it has been a big distraction for the business. Despite that, the business has grown very quickly. But we have spent, one of the things when this is all said and done, we will have spent over $100 million on legal fees fighting the SEC. And the dynamic there is, in my opinion, the SEC bullies companies into settlements because they can't afford to fight. And the reason why this fight is so important isn't just for Ripple, it's really for the whole industry. And I think for the US to remain competitive and really, hopefully, eventually a leader in crypto, I think it's incredibly important that we get this resolved in a way that is constructive for the US ecosystem around crypto.
It has absolutely been piecemeal, regulation by enforcement rather than policy, right? And I think, your case has evolved into that push for clarity and transparency around what is what in the crypto space. You reminded me a bit earlier today that it's been 4 years since the Hinman Declaration that laid out what was a commodity in the crypto world and what was not. And that's a long time in crypto.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious for your thoughts on the slow pace of change as it relates to some of the regulatory clarity that you're seeing.
On the list of frustrating things, this one might be number one on my list. So, to remind everybody, it was literally 4 years ago this week that Bill Hinman, the director of corporate finance at the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, gave a speech saying that ETH was not a security. And by the way, let me be clear, I do not think ETH is a security. I don't think XRP is a security. But at the time, we viewed this as, isn't it great that 4 years ago, we're starting to provide some leadership and some clarity. And I viewed this as actually a very positive sign. I remember there's emails, which now the SEC has read from our internal documents, where I sent the team a note saying, hey, this is great news. We now have clarity of how the SEC is thinking about this. And they used some parameters around decentralization and what have you. And look, the fact that 4 years have gone by and we still don't have clarity about how the SEC is going to say what is and is not a security. And worse, actually, now the SEC, the current chair, Gensler, is really walking back the statement around ETH, and that he has been asked directly, is ETH a security? He won't answer the question. How can we be competitive in the United States in an industry where a primary regulator will not provide that clarity?
Amen.
So on the legislative side, we've seen more proposals see the light of day. Most recently, the Senator Lummis and Gillibrand proposal. Curious for your thoughts on what is included in that bill and whether that could one day provide some of that clarity that's needed.
I will start by just saying I think anything is better than where we are, almost, because clarity and certainty allows people to understand where the rules of the road are. My experience in crypto is the vast majority of people want to do right by the rules. but you got to know where the rules are, right? So I think the Senate bill that you're describing, I think, is a constructive step in that regard and provides some clarity. There's a bill that was introduced in the House side called the Digital Commodity Exchange Act, which we certainly have been very active advocates of. I think maybe the most important thing is, like, these are forward progress. I expect there will be some hearings around these bills, and when there's hearings, it bring attention to the lack of clarity, and I think it catalyzes and builds momentum. Momentum to when, I think, is open for debate. I've talked to some very smart people that think realistically, either the House side or the Senate side, it's a year away before something gets passed, which that's a long time from now. And I think the U.S. every day is losing competitiveness relative to other markets that have clearer regulation, clearer leaning in. And that's certainly true for Ripple and how we are manifesting our customer growth, our employee growth, and what have you. But I do think, to your core question, I think it's a positive step for sure.
Gotcha. So it's been 18 months. It's been a bit of stasis, but certainly you've been doing a lot of work. The business of running this company does not stop. How are you describing the value proposition of Ripple Labs here in 2022? How has the narrative around the company changed or stayed the same over this sort of 18-month stretch?
Well, I think it stayed very much the same. I think Ripple was, amongst the earliest to lean into enterprise solutions, blockchain solutions for the enterprise. Our first go-to-market is on cross-border payments and using XRP as an extremely efficient, in terms of speed, in terms of cost, as an ability to move funds cross-border. We sell to regulated financial institutions. So, a lot of the concerns about, that regulators get concerned about around KYC, around AML, we only work with regulated institutions globally. 95% of our customers are non-US customers already. Certainly the US case has, we've been able to have one or two contracts we signed here in the United States, but it's been slow going in the US. But the great news is, demand for one of our core products, we call on-demand liquidity. That's the product using XRP to move liquidity for institutions. That grew, already at $1 billion run rate last year. That grew 8x year on year in Q1. So the demand is clearly there. And I think one of the opportunities for everyone in crypto is to make sure we're solving real problems, right? There's a lot of excitement, and I think there should be. Sometimes that excitement and really the hype factor gets ahead of the reality, and just speculation in and of itself is not a business model in my judgment. I think you've got to have, and there are a lot of companies downstairs at this conference that I think are doing exactly that, and it gets me very invigorated about the future of crypto.
Yeah, that said, you guys have also been branching out into some things that I don't typically think of when I think of Ripple, right? I saw this, cross-chain bridge that brings DeFi to XRP Ledger. I've seen other experiments. I think there's an NFT fund, right? So it seems as though on that side there is a broadening of what this network can do. Is that something that is intentional on your part?
Well, for sure. Look, we generally look at the world and say, we are going to focus, Ripple, the company, is going to focus on enterprise solutions, using blockchain technology to solve enterprise solutions. We use as the primary technology underlying this, the XRP Ledger, because it's extremely fast, because it's extremely scalable. I think some of the things we're seeing happen in the ecosystem overall, I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with the Yuga Labs dynamic around gas fees. And look, I think there's a lot of ways you can use technologies as efficient as the XRP Ledger to solve scaled use cases. And again, I get super excited about real world enterprise solutions. NFTs is certainly an area that I think is going to here to stay. I maybe somewhat controversially said recently that I thought NFTs were underhyped. I think people were kind of surprised by that because they're pretty hyped. What I was calling out is that I don't know how to think about NFTs in the context of, is one artist better than the other, right? Is a Van Gogh worth more than a Picasso? I don't know. What I do know is there's a lot of NFTs in terms of tokenization of assets around real estate, around patent portfolios, around licensing rights. There's all kinds of stuff that I think NFTs will manifest in a way that's great for industries by reducing transaction costs, making these industries more efficient. And that's where I think NFTs are underhyped in terms of how they will integrate into our economy broadly.
Brad, are you a secret NFT whale? Kind of getting that vibe here. What's in the NFT bag?
I would not describe myself as an NFT whale. No. I'm fascinated, and I have experimented, but I would not describe, back to my, like a lot of the really aggressive activity around NFTs has been around art. And that's, as I said, like I don't know how to think about why one Bored Ape is more valuable than another one because of some colors. It's kind of, I think it's fascinating, and I'm an enthusiast and advocate. I also will say, and part of I made the point earlier on ETH, I think all boats rise. And one of the most frustrating things, and CoinDesk has certainly written about this, the tribalism in crypto is holding us all back. Like, we just gotta fucking stop it. Like, we have to, like, we're all the same team. I really believe that. Like, what's good for crypto is good for Ripple. And I try to be really careful about, like, even on stuff that I feel like I don't understand. I'm not trying to badmouth, NFTs. Like, I just don't know. But I think what's good for crypto is good for everybody in the industry. And I think the tribalism holds us back in a really big way.
Yeah, you mentioned sort of scaling, and obviously a big conversation that seems to pop up every bull run is the energy cost associated with some particular blockchain, specifically proof of work blockchain mining, very energy intensive, not something that Ripple relies on as a technology, and you've become increasingly outspoken about some of those energy costs. What are your current thoughts on some of the environmental debates that we're seeing play out, be it in New York State or different municipalities around the US?
Look, I'm aware of the New York State, moratorium that I think it did pass. Is that right?
I believe so, but it's a 2-year moratorium.
Look, I am a person who believes in climate change. I'm a person who believes that carbon production is something we got to pay attention to. And again, we're all on the same team here. I think to the extent we can use more efficient technologies for solutions, then we should use those. I will pick on the Yuga Labs experience. The transaction fees. By the way, let's just boil down. Blockchains are all about removing middleman costs, right? I mean, if you make it simple. Okay, so the Yuga Labs experience, the transaction fees were 40%. So we went from having centralized actors charging, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4% to now let's have a 40% charge. Holy shit, like, let's not do that. That's a bad idea. So I think the proof of work, I think, has its place potentially in some use cases. I think there are a lot of other scaled technologies that work better. The developers, the original developers of the XRP ledger, some of them had been early contributors to the Bitcoin protocol. And they foresaw, and again, the brilliance of these guys just blows my mind, but they foresaw 10 years ago, hey, wait a minute, as Bitcoin becomes more successful, if in fact it achieves the success we want it to achieve, it's going to have massive scalability issues manifested by energy consumption, etc. And so they developed the XRP ledger as another alternative. And I use that word as an alternative, right? It's not that, hey, I own Bitcoin. I've said that publicly before. I own ETH. I own XRP, not surprisingly. I think all of them can do well. I think the energy dynamic is a real one. I think we should be intellectually honest about what the real math is and what are the implications. But that doesn't mean that, I own Bitcoin. I didn't go sell Bitcoin because of proof of work.
Gotcha. Let's look forward. I know this is not news, but it's an easy mainstream headline. Hey, after we fix this SEC thing, we're probably going to pursue a public listing in some way, shape, or form. I know you've been saying that for a while now. Outside of those plans, what do you see as next for Ripple Labs?
Well, look, our first primary use case has been around cross-border payments. Fortunately, that has been a very rapidly growing business. We now have 10 offices around the world, over 600 employees. We're trying to hire 350 people this year, mostly outside the United States. So we are scaling quickly, and as everyone here has experienced, when you're growing quickly, that has some growing pains that go with it. We are starting to do other vertical use cases. We announced a couple of things that you referenced, a $250 million creator fund around NFTs. Last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, we announced a $100 million commitment to invest in around carbon credits. It doesn't really tie to the point you were making around proof of work, but I think one of the problems around carbon credits that you have seen and certainly read about is everything from fraudulent carbon credits. It's a perfect use case for blockchains. We think the XRP ledger is a great blockchain to build carbon credit marketplaces on top of, and so it's an area we are going to and have been investing in.
All right, fantastic. We will leave it there. We're gonna let you get on your way and collect some nice PFP NFTs, get you on your way to NFT whale status. But thank you very much for being here today and sharing an update on where things stand with you and your company.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks
Appreciate
to
it.
Brett.
Thanks.